Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson and once again I'll be your host for this episode. And as per usual, I am joined by Scott and Joris. Scott and Joris, how are you guys doing this evening?
Hi guys, how are you? Hello everyone. Do you know what I've been doing? I've been practicing my backflips. I don't know if anybody saw the other day, Charleroi keeper Herve Koffi doing his thing at Afcon, getting very, very excited as Burkina Faso, his team, his home country, win their penalty shootout and does, I don't know how many backflips it was he did, 11 or 12 as part of his celebration. It was absolutely superb and he's inspired me to start practicing. So, yeah, I'll keep you up to date.
And it's my mom's birthday, so happy birthday, mom! Once again, I'm sure she won't hear it, but still, it's probably also about the only positive thing I will be seeing in this episode.
I mean, I don't even know where to go from those two openings, but I do want to see, Scott, a video of you doing 12 backflips. I think this is what the people are now going to be demanding. So yeah, a little bit more practice and I reckon you've got it nailed. But yeah, congrats to the Cat Coffee getting through. I'll do another little Afcon Round Up later, but yeah, he's definitely gone viral off of that rather than some of his ridiculous saves. But I mean, what a legend. Let's jump straight into the Belgian Pro League action. I'll just quickly go over all the results we had from this week. Started Friday night with Oostende now no longer under the management of Alexander Blessin. They hosted Antwerp and played quite well, only lost by 2-1. Kortrijk and Eupen played out a 1-1 draw. Beerschot got a win. They just seem to love playing Leuven. They won 3-1. St. Truden also got a win and scored 3 goals in the process. They beat a really, really struggling Salang 3-1 as well. Charleroi and Ghent decided to not score any goals because I think that was the only game I could actually watch fully live on Saturday. So thank you to those two teams for that. Standard and Club Brugge played out a 2-2 draw. Union left it very, very, very late to beat Genk 2-1. Mecklen lost 1-0 at home to Anderlecht, and then on Sunday, Cercle Brugge continued their fine form with a 3-1 victory over Zulte Waregem. Let's start with Oostende Antwerp then, guys. Obviously, Blessin's gone. He's now left and joined Genoa. We wish him all the best. We're definitely going to miss him in the Pro League, but I was actually, I don't know what you guys thought, I was quite impressed with Oostende in this game. They did manage to take the lead as well. Zach Medley on the 48th minute, putting them 1 goal up. Really, really impressed with Sakamoto coming in, the new man from the J-League on the wing. He looks like a really, really exciting prospect. Great on the ball, really kind of dragging that side forward and quite good attacking from the left-hand side. So definitely watch out for him. We also saw Carl Duncan on the right-hand side. So you had two kind of starters playing left and right for them. It's nice to see the US man who we know has been joining that club for a while finally get a starting spot and get to see him in that. However, Antwerp did play themselves back into it. Mikkel Frey on the 60th minute pulling them back in, and then Balikwisha with a nice goal in the 70th minute to give them a 2-1 victory. Scott, I'll start with you on this. Were you impressed with what you saw from Oostende in this one? And what were your kind of thoughts on their post-Blessin kind of setup?
Yeah, well, I think this is, for me, this is the best they've played in quite a while, actually. Probably a couple of months at least. Really decent performance. And I was wondering going into this game just quite how they would respond, obviously, to the big news that Blessin had kind of left just a few hours earlier. I was really keen to see how they would respond, because these things can kind of go either way for a side, and they actually played very well. They looked energetic. You're right, Sakamoto looks like a really good pickup. They'll be looking to make that permanent if they can, I think. He made Joris's team of the week this week as well, I think, deservedly, Sakamoto. Yeah, they played quite well. I think this is one of those kind of small margins games, really. It could have gone either way, and I think Antwerp squeaked it, really, because 2 or 3 mistakes creeping into Oostende's game at kind of key moments, and they were kind of fatal mistakes, really, giving Michael Fry too much space, ultimately not tracking runs, those kind of things, the sort of things they're normally good at. And just at key moments, things that Oostende have become known for doing very well, the high press, the high turnovers in the opposition's final third just weren't quite as tight and as intense as they would like them to be. And I think that's got a lot to do with the difference in margins in the end, because Oostende did create their own opportunities as well, and obviously had what was quite a nice goal chopped off, unfortunately. But really decent game this, and I thought they responded. The initial signs of life post-Blessing are kind of positive, really, on the basis of that. If they can keep that going, then they'll be all right, regardless of who their new man is when they come in. It was a very positive response, so they'll be heartened by that, I think.
Yeah, and to keep on going on the Blessing team, it's a bit more negative already again. Like I also mentioned it to you guys, his new team, Genoa, got a clean sheet, which probably didn't have happened that much this season since they're in the relegation zone. And with that one clean sheet, he almost has the same amount of clean sheets he got at Oostende. And unfortunately, that did show in this game as well. I still don't know what Medley was doing at the 1-1 after his great finish, of course. Granted, there was a bit of luck in there as well. Nainggolan basically shoots with his foot in the ground and that becomes an assist. And a brilliant assist even, but if you don't see that small part. But a good through ball. But yeah, Medley should do better there. But for the rest, indeed, Sakamoto made my team of the week. You already gave him praise, and rightfully so, I think. Frey marking again 2 weeks in a row already. If he keeps on going like that, it will definitely still be a tight battle with Undaf, it looks like, still for that top scorer title. Less important as a team, of course, but definitely a good personal goal for them. Nainggolan was for quite a while in my team of the week as well, because he created more or less 5 chances. But yeah, just since that little factor of luck involved in the assist, that also counts in it. In the end, I didn't pick him, but he definitely made the bench of that team.
He's still trying to score spectacular goals, Nainggolan, isn't he, guys? You know what I mean? That he's not dropped that urge of his to hit a 30-yard rocket or try to into the top corner. There was a couple of attempts in this game as well that I thought, okay, he's still at it. One of them's going to come off at some point.
He definitely is, and indeed, he was trying. And while I was skeptical at the beginning of the season, he definitely has made a bigger impact in the past few months. He also said himself adapting to the Belgian league was a bit different than he expected, I guess. But yeah, he definitely is now proving his worth more and more at Antwerp with goals and assists, and just, of course, his general presence as well.
Yeah, I think he's settled properly now. He does look like a settled player, and seems to be bringing a reasonably consistent level of performance to his game. Just going back to Blessing for a minute, guys, I personally am really sorry to see him go, not only because he was coach of the year deservedly last year, but I think he's so important to everything good that's come out of Oostende over the last year and a bit, and he's obviously a huge loss for them, and they have to be very careful now and picking who's going to take over from him longer term. Also, is the way he handled the media as well was also really nice. You could tell that he's just enjoyable to be around. He's funny, he's self-deprecating, and he's honest as well. And he carries himself with the press and media, I think, in a way a lot of other managers could learn a lot from. So I wish him well, and I think it's one of those where the offer comes in to buy out his contract, and you have to make a pretty much snap decision. And if you think about it from his point of view, this season's been difficult for them because we know they lost the spine of the side, and they're still adjusting to that. Even now, that offer comes in, and sometimes you just have to move when your stock's high, regardless of how you feel about the club you're at. And this is just one of those. So I wish him well, and certainly there'll be lots of people in Belgium who'll be keeping an eye on how he's doing in Italy, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think when you look at the size of the club he's gone to, like Genoa is obviously quite a massive club in Italy, like lots and lots of history. So I really do hope he does do well there. I hope he keeps them in the league and kind of gets the chance to build upon that. And yeah, like you said, like you were mentioning about the defence and stuff, and it's been well highlighted, the players that they've lost in that position. Thankfully, they will be getting Stefan Fortes back at the time of speaking. Obviously, Cape Verde down to 9 men and a goal down at the time of our recording. So presuming that him and Kenny Rocha Santos are coming back. And I think Fortes has looked quite good in the Afcon tournament, so he's going to come back with a bit of form. He's done quite well today against Sadio Mane and another couple of big players. So I think having him back there could obviously help, because it's a young defensive back three that they're playing with. Like, no one really over the age of 25, I don't think, unless Brecht Capon's playing, but he hasn't been involved for quite a while. So yeah, Medley, Jakel and Tond, like that's a young back three. So getting another experienced head in there would be good. But good to see them playing well. Nice for Antwerp, obviously, to get a win against a side like that playing well. So yeah, let's move on to Kortrijk against Eupen. I guess I saw the highlights for this one. Looked like quite an entertaining game, quite a few chances involved in it. Maybe not enough chances, shots taken on target, unfortunately. But the first goal by Julian Ngoy, I mean, he sends about 5 Kortrijk players completely the other way with this turn in the box. And I think it was Cal Mackey on Twitter who said that, I think obviously Cal's over in Belgium. He's like, whisper it very, very quietly if you're in Belgium, but shades of Hal Robson-Kanu in the Euros for Wales with that turn and finish. Reading legend Hal Robson-Kanu, of course, at that time, but it is a very similar goal, kind of back to goal in the box, neat turn, lovely finish into the bottom corner. Just what Eupen really needed was getting Ngoy back and firing, kind of the lineup that they could line up within this team. Obviously, Prevoljak and Ngoy back up top. Jens Kool's back in the midfield. They're starting to get those players back into those positions. Conan and Dree, I thought, played really well in this game as well. A nice assist for the goal, and just he looked a lot more dangerous. However, they weren't able to hold on to that. Slight mistake, I guess. A major mistake, I guess you could say, from Robert Hillman in goal, who's actually been pretty solid and made some good saves in this game, actually. But nice moment for Bill Maswidi getting his first goal for Kortrijk. Yeah, Hillman probably should do better. It looks like he completely misjudges the flight of the ball, but nice for Bilal and nice for Kortrijk that a striker's scoring goals, because obviously we know that their striking department's just been absolutely shot with injuries, and obviously Badamosi at Afcon, Pat Gay's still out. I even got an update on Pat Gay's injury, not from anyone at Kortrijk, but from if anyone saw the match-worn shirts thing that was going around where you could all bid for match-worn shirts, and I was lucky enough to win a Pat Gay one, but I got an email today saying unfortunately they can't dispatch it yet because he's not able to sign it because he's still doing rehab and going back from his injury. So I was like, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, so it looks like he's still a bit away from coming back, that he can't even sign a shirt. But no rush from my end, Pap. You concentrate on getting back for football. Signing a shirt is completely irrelevant. Let's get him back on the pitch, because they could definitely do with him back. But nice for Masidi to get back in amongst the goals there. Probably a deserved result in the end between these two teams. Joris, I'll start with you on this. What are your kind of impressions on this result for both teams? Do you think they could either have done with a win, or do you think they'll both be happy with the point?
Ultimately, I think so. But I do also think that both teams at certain points in the game will have thought differently, especially Kortrijk in the beginning, how they were not 1-0 up or more even before the Ngoy did his magic, and also their defense lacked a bit, and that's coming from what is the second best defense in the league as well. That was quite shocking defending. But before the goal, I think they will have thought that this one we should be winning this one. After the goal, even 1 minute after the goal, I think Coles incredibly misses. He was a bit surprised, and if he just touches the ball, it goes in, and the game might already be killed for Eupen then. But well, that's not what they do lately anymore, of course. Well, Messaoudi definitely tried to shoot from all angles, and ultimately, it's no surprise that he scored. Even though, of course, it is definitely a Himmelman mistake. But Messaoudi tried 8 times to shoot on goal, and I think almost all of them were from distance. So I guess persistence sometimes gets you somewhere. But definitely, I think afterwards the game was more even. Eupen definitely also still had a few chances, especially in the beginning of the first half. So I guess in the end, both teams could live with a draw.
I think this game actually sort of underlines quite how competitive the Belgian Pro League is. I mean, we know this. This is not news to us and to many of you listeners. Actually, who get to see some games. One of the funny things about this was I remember saying to you guys in the opening stages of this game, the first 15 minutes, how Kortrijk, not ahead some of the chances they'd created, and I think it was within about 10 seconds of me saying that to you, Eupen go up the park with what was, I think, genuinely their first attack of the game and score. And in many ways that's this league all over, actually. And it kind of it it was quite a topsy-turvy game in that sense. You know, you still had no confidence that Kortrijk, despite the fact that they dominated a lot of this game and probably should have won it, didn't, and just didn't because this league is so competitive. And it's back to that, one of those favourite words that we like to use fairly regularly here at the BFP, efficiency, isn't it, guys? It's just, it's Luca Elsner was talking about it over the last week as well. I'm sure we'll talk about that when we talk about standard, but entertaining game this, actually. Loads and loads of opportunities, some funny mistakes, good goals as well, and also some terrible ball watching that led to one of the goals, Sunday league stuff, really.
Yeah, and also just a small remark still. And we all know I'm a big fan of Agbadou, but he really had a nightmare of a game in the ball position, at least. But then I'm also surprised to see him get a 7.8 on FODMAP. So that doesn't really reflect my image of his game, because he lost the ball 3 times, I think, in very dangerous positions, either by passing or by trying to dribble out from the back. So to maybe highlight that, like, he didn't have a good game at all.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I was just going to say, you're right. His footwork is normally very, very good, Agbadou's, but he did nearly fall over on a number of occasions from simple passes. I think I don't know. It was funny. I did note that. I thought his head isn't in the game here.
Well, to be fair, yeah, he's got people interested in him, as we've seen from different. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he is kind of. I think it's only natural, isn't it, during January, if you're a player and you've got that kind of buzz around you, that you're going to be slightly distracted. But just kind of looking at the overall picture for both of these clubs, like Kortrijk have really put a nice run together. I think that's 5 unbeaten for them now, 2 draws in the last 2 games and then 3 wins before that. Erpen, on the other hand, they stopped the rot. That's 4 defeats they had in a row up until this game. And I think it kind of confirms what I personally feel about Erpen is, like, when they can have that full strength 11 on the pitch, they will be fine. It's just that they haven't been able to do that for the last 4 games. This game, they finally start to get some of the bigger players back and they can compete a little bit better. So, yeah, as long as they can get players on the pitch, they should be fine. But Kortrijk definitely are one of the informed teams at the moment and definitely worth a watch. They'll be getting Selemani back as well, obviously, with Comoros getting knocked out in the craziest of fashion. I'm sure many people listening to this watched that game, which was absolutely mental. But yeah, it'd be good for Kortrijk to get him back and kind of slot him back in and get some goals from him again. Let's move on to Beerschot against Leuven. Many of you will be surprised that Beerschot actually won, and they were good value for the win, to be honest. I think, Joris, you made a mention of it in our kind of chat, that if it wasn't for Runarsson in goal, this could have been a lot more than 3-1. He made some fantastic saves in the game.
Even made my team of the week despite losing against the dead bottom team.
But fully deserved. If you haven't seen the highlights, definitely go watch it and you'll know exactly why Joris has put him in, because he made some incredible saves. And he did keep them in the game for long periods. However, Leuven did take the lead. Sieb Schlevers with a absolutely fantastic goal. I don't know, you guys may recall some other goals he scored, but I feel like he only scores good goals. Like, he doesn't score often enough for what we've wanted from him, but he does score some really, really good goals when he does score, and this was another one of those really good goals. However, go down the other end, 24th minute, Moekia Lemos, the centre-back for Beerschot, was like, you know what, I'm just going to do one up Sieb Schlevers here with a ridiculously good free kick from the centre-back. Absolutely no right to hit that.
Who needs Holzhausen?
Exactly. And that's even what I think the commentator I was listening to said, was like, you don't need Holzhausen when you got someone that could do that. And we've kind of spoken, haven't we, that we're just unsure where the goals for Beerschot are going to come from with their strikers. But apparently they don't need strikers, they just need defenders. Pierre Bourdin with a really nice cross to Joran Dom at the back post. But Dom shows everything you'd want to see in a team that's battling relegation. The desire to get to the ball, just that want and hunger to get to the chance. It's a really good ball from Bourdin, but Casper De Noor is just completely asleep. If you watch it on the replay, he's kind of checks him. He knows that he's on his kind of back shoulder. As the ball comes in, he doesn't kind of even react to thinking that Dom's going to make that run across him, and it's just quite an easy finish for him then. And then into the 90th minute, Holzhauser is on at this point. Lovely little 1-2 with Van den Berg, who puts it away. Really disappointing for Leuven. They just can't seem to beat Beerschot. It's just one of those things, like, obviously the two sides came up together, really, really struggling. And it was interesting that they went with Alamirsh up front instead of Kevin Rezai. Obviously, Sori Cabas at the Afcon, but I was pretty sure, okay, this is a great chance for Kevo Rezai to kind of find some minutes, find some touches in this team, get kind of back into kind of the player that we've seen before when he is on form. But the fact that Beers went with Alamish, I don't know if that was thinking, okay, we're playing against Beerschot, we don't need a Rezai type, we need more of like a kind of more mobile striker, but it didn't really work. And given some results that we'll move to elsewhere, this is actually a big result for Beerschot. And Scott, did you see anything in this game to think, yeah, this could be the start of a small turning point for them?
Not really, if I'm being honest. I was surprised by the kind of improvement in the performance. I mean, one of the notes I actually made after watching the game was strikers still not scoring goals. Now, obviously, Beerschot will look at it and go, well, to be honest, we don't care. It's 3 points we desperately needed. The goalkeeper can score all our goals. If he wants, for a week, we'll take it, and that's fair enough. But it's interesting. I mean, you're alluding to how big these 3 points are. I mean, there's a game tomorrow night at time of recording. Beerschot go to Serang, and that's a massive game because obviously, if and it's still a big if, but if Beerschot win that, they'll be within 4 points of Serang. And, the potential great escape would very much be back on again big time if they can get the 3 points away from home there. So this 3 points against Leuven really potentially very significant. And psychologically, the effect that win will have had on Serang as well, bearing in mind their own result, which we'll talk about shortly, I think is kind of, come together at just the right point for Beerschot. So, yeah, I mean, considering the disruption in the camp, with what was happening with Mike Van Hamel that we talked about last week as well, they'll be delighted, just to get what was a pretty comfortable win for them in the end. I was surprised that Leuven didn't make more of it, and like you, I was surprised that Alamir started as well. Actually, we know that Leuven have prioritised a striker, and that hasn't changed either. So I would still expect another striker to come in there before the window closes in another few days, because even with Kaba coming back, not too far away now, you could still argue that they do need more just for the sake of competition in the camp. Really,
that game tomorrow will definitely also that game will be a turning point, I think, for either of the sides. If Serrain would win, to jump ahead a bit, really should discuss that a bit more when we talk about Serrain's game. But if they would win, maybe they can pull some other teams in. While if they don't, it looks like, depending on other results, that maybe the bottom 2 places are decided. Who is going to be where then is still very important and up for grabs. But the gap between 17 and 16 could increase there, or if Serrain wins, it could pull them at the bottom of a list of teams that should worry, starting from Sint-Truiden, I guess, still around 11, that are 8 points ahead of them. Depending on all kinds of results, that might all change. Yeah, if Serrain win, they then and everything is open there for getting to 17th spot, and Beerschot seem, well, more doomed than ever. But I think I already touched on it a month ago or so. Like this game days, the end of January, they will prove really crucial in the battle for relegation.
Yeah, there's a couple of massive games. I mean, that one at the bottom is equally as huge as the big topper, obviously on Thursday between Club and Union as well. So, a lot of, really huge games, particularly this midweek, which is nice.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, yeah, you're both completely right there. This kind of Serang Beerschot game is just massive at the moment. So let's jump to Serang then. As I said, they lost 3-1 to St. Truiden. Daichi Hayashi getting the first goal. Really, really nice finish from him, running through onto a ball and slotting it home. Yaya Najlani actually got the equaliser for Serang. They got back into it in the 44th minute. So going into halftime, it was 1-0. However, gave away a penalty in the 76th minute. Christian Bull stepped up, and he's been so consistent from the spot this season. He puts it away. And in the kind of the dying minutes, Taichi Hala makes it 3-1 for Serang. I mean, they did have the chances. Like, they only managed one shot on target, according to the stats that I looked at, which is frustrating when you consider that Mikatadze did have a couple of chances going through. Molawage got his first start in this one. They brought him in on a free signing, which I thought was quite a good signing, but he couldn't stop the rot at the back. Obviously, they are missing Cisse and Jallo as well. These kind of results that they were getting were kind of happening before then. Just trying to remember the last time. I don't think they've won since November against St. Truden, so the reverse fixture when they won 2-0. Since then, yeah, they've lost to arguably some stronger teams. Like you chuck in, I don't know, you got like Anderlecht, Club Brugge in there, Union as well. Obviously, the other day with the kind of half and half game, they ended up losing 4-0 despite Union having 10 men. So they'd have probably earmarked this game as one to win. But like you said, coming up is big for them. They've got Beerschot and then they've got Eupen. Annoyingly and probably frustratingly for them, Eupen are probably going to be at full strength by the time they play them on Saturday. They'll have got more of their players back and more in a rhythm. So they're kind of running into these two sides at the worst possible time. For St. Truden, obviously massive result for them to get that win. They really did need to beat a team like Selang to kind of, like Joris was talking about, kind of the gaps in the tables and stuff like that. Beating Selang was a really important thing for them. I guess either one of you can jump in, but do you think when Jallo and Cisse are back, do you think Selang are going to be okay? Obviously, they bought Napari, they bought in a couple of other players. Do you think they will be okay and they just need to not lose to Beerschot and they get these players back and they'll be fine? Or do you think actually they're in a massive hole and these two players aren't going to make a difference? They just got to deal with what they've got at the moment.
I think it's very difficult to say, isn't it? It's one of those that could kind of go either way. I mean, I think on paper they do still have the players who could get them out of this and get them out even of the playoff spot which they're in. Obviously, Zalta, who are just above them, 4 points above them, same as Oostende, who are very much still in this. I think even a point, actually, arguably, against Beerschot tomorrow night as we record is not a bad result for them, depending on what happens at the weekend as well. I think, a couple of wins could change everything for them, so there is still plenty of time. Equally, if Beerschot win it, as I was just saying, then that changes everything again, you know what I mean? Because it just, that concertina effect, it just pulls everybody in and brings them a little bit closer. So, this is arguably even bigger, this game tomorrow night, than any cup final could be for them. I think they're still adjusting as well. I mean, Jean-Louis Garcia obviously will have his own ideas about how he wants them to play, but because of the situation they're in, I don't think you can afford to spend too many weeks making too many tweaks or adjustments, because actually when they do play to the best of their ability, they are a decent side who do play positive attacking football. So they need to hopefully just try and find that, that flow again, to get them a couple of results. Because, if I was inside the camp there, I'd be looking at the table and going, look guys, do you know what I mean? We just need to keep working hard and doing the basics right, because the thing is, Zalta haven't markedly improved yet. And although Oostende played well this weekend, they're still very much in this fight down at the bottom as well. So it's all there for who can just, squeeze a little bit more out of the tank.
Yeah, and ironically, it seems like they are going for a more defensive approach, and they now finally scored a goal after 6 games. So that's a little bit of irony. And coming back to your original question, I do think it's a big hit for them. I wouldn't say they would be safe if they would be here or if they would come back and everything will be fine. But I think they really are. The Afcon is really at the worst timing for them, with all these relegation battles going on this month and missing these players at the moment. Missing these players at the moment against the teams they arguably would have been most useful. That might be their complete downfall.
No, definitely. And I think just looking at kind of when Jallo would be back, like he obviously won't be back for these 2 games. Gambia have Cameroon next. Realistically, he won't be back until Charleroi, Antwerp. And it's Charleroi, Antwerp and Ghent in a row before they play Zoltava again on the 27th of Feb. So that becomes a massive game. But after that, it's Club Brugge, Standard, who not the same, but Standard away is always a difficult place to go. Then they finish with Leuven, Oostende, and finish at Genk. So yeah, some tough fixtures, but everyone's got to play these tough fixtures, because like Beerschot, obviously after they play Selang, will have some tough fixtures as well. So
I think one of the interesting things as well, guys, is it's going to be really interesting to see whether they throw them straight back in, because quite often, as we know, we've seen it at lots of clubs over the years, when players come back from Afcon to their clubs, it's not unusual for them to get, maybe a week off. It's just totally totally understandable. But because of the situation they're in, which may have changed for the worse or for the better by the time he comes back, whether they feel that actually losing him potentially for another week just isn't really an option. So I'm going to, be really interested to see what they decide to do there.
Was it Thomas Partey who kind of came back and a day later got sent off? So he's just kind of like, do you rush these guys back in, give them a break, because it's a tough tournament. Like, it's very, very high intensity football. But ironically, I guess Beerschot could win. They'll be 4 points behind Selang. They then play Zulteval again. They'll be still a point behind Selang after those two matches. So like, those are kind of their two looking ahead real winnable games that they've got. And even then, it still might not be enough. Like, that's how much of a hole they're in. So part of me I want the relegation battle. Like, I don't want a team to be completely cut adrift because it adds to the excitement. But yeah, they've got to pick up these two wins and then go on a run. It's not just enough to pick up a result against Selang, but psychologically it should have a boost for them if they can do it. But if Selang do it, I think, yeah, I can see them kind of pushing on with the boost that will give them. So yeah, really important game between those two this midweek. Let's move on to the Saturday evening game. Not much to really say about this one. Charleroi against Ghent, 0-0. Not a lot interest happened. I don't even know where to really begin or end or start with this one. I guess we saw a couple of interesting players make kind of appearances for some of the sides. Nkuba starting up front for Charleroi was quite interesting, I thought, because Bayer was unable to play. We saw a bit of Petkevicius, the Lithuanian that Charleroi signed, but again, don't have much time to make an impact in this one. I guess it's kind of a result that, like we've been saying with some of the other games, doesn't really suit either team massively. Keeps them both kind of in playoff 2, doesn't really bridge the gap for either side into that playoff 1. They're still both level on 6 points off the kind of fourth place Anderlecht. For Charleroi, at least it stopped a run of defeats in a row. They had 2 defeats in a row. For Ghent, that's now 3 draws on the bounce. And obviously against Courtois, they had kind of a makeshift team. Before that, drew with Union, so they can grind out these 0-0s when they want to, and they are missing a key player in Ngadu at centre back. So not the worst of results for them. Do you guys have anything to say on this one? I'm kind of rambling on, trying to find something to say about a 0-0.
I think my match report says nothing to report. My eyes can't ever unsee this game.
The main thing probably is coming back to a question from last week. There is Gianni Bruno. He started for him.
Yeah.
So he's still alive, luckily. And who knows what will come from it. But this game was not the one. Definitely that will get his career in Ghent on track. And well, for the rest, Ben said during the game, this game really needs a goal. One of these cliches, of course, but my reaction was, well, it's still a mystery where that would come from, and it remains a mystery until the next picture between those two teams, I guess.
I mean, yeah, they could still be playing now, and I don't think anyone would have scored. It was that drab. It was one of those games that just needed some fan atmosphere to keep you engaged. I think you do find that sometimes if you're watching some of the more drab games, you're like, yeah, if we could just have a bit of chanting, it might get a bit of intensity going, but alas, it wasn't to be. At least we had some goals at the Sunday kickoff. Standard Liège against Club Brugge. A really nice counter-attacking opening goal for Standard. Matteo Caffaro with the finish after Donham. I don't know what he was doing. Like, he tried to cross it, messed it up. Then he tried to pass it and kind of messed it up, but then managed to pass it anyway and got the assist on that one. Bas Dost then absolutely bulldozed, I think it was it Leifis or Ducen? I can't remember which one of those two it was, but he just absolutely battered them to win a header. He was like, I'm getting this, and he did. Club Brugge should have a really nice goal from Lang, chalked off for offside, wasn't it, after VAR, but that's quite a nice bit of movement and play from them. Edmond got his first goal since returning to Standard in the 48th minute. Really nice kind of coming across finish from him. Just kind of what they've been missing a little bit from the other strikers that they've got. Just that little bit of movement in the box, which was nice from him. Kind of what we saw Muleka doing last year with his kind of front post runs. Apart from this was a little bit more central. So he looked absolutely chuffed with that. But then Bas Dost again in the 59th minute brought parity. And then in the 83rd minute, Jack Hendry got himself sent off. He's only been given a 1-match ban. And I think if I read it's because of his previous disciplinary record or something. So apparently if you're a nice man and don't do many disciplinary things, you get kind of leeway when it comes to red card suspensions.
My favourite thing about that, guys, I don't know, did you spot this when you were watching it? The camera, there was a close-up on Jack just as he was getting sent off, and he did actually say to the ref twice, "Why is that a red, ref? Why is that a red?" And, I thought that was hilarious because, my instant reaction was, that's a red, that is a red all day long. And he's pointing at his defensive cover when, everyone knows that, the cover was never going to get across. No. That was my favourite bit.
I think because
and the mild punishment comes because it's in the match report from the referees. Apparently, they only noted down that he was the last man. But even if he wouldn't have been, that would have been a straight red card, of course. But that was not noted down, and he didn't get additional punishment for that. So just for there is a table for that. Then in that sense, it's a normal sentence.
Okay,
but yeah,
because
a bit weird.
Yeah, the report must have been one of the translations I read was like because of his niceness, but I presume they meant because of like you said.
Also though, no, that's definitely not of his niceness, but yeah, since it's the first time he sent off.
I mean, he can cut. I know I think he was pointing at. Was it Insoki he was pointing at, or was it someone else? Van der Brempt maybe, or Rika. Just kind of relying on their pace. Also, shout out to Tajon Buchanan with a first assist in the Pro League. That was nice to see. And a shout out to, I'm going to butcher this, Alexander Kalut. Started at left back for Standard Liège. Started over Niels and Kunkus. After the game, I think it was Elsner and Raskin were like, we've been really impressed with him in training. Elsner was like, I was really kind of happy to stick him in. I had full faith in him. You also go to, obviously, as the resident Belgian, it's nice to see kind of a young Belgian get a start at such a young age. What were your kind of thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, definitely always good to see young Belgians in a team, whether that's out of necessity or not. And in this case, he did get picked over in Kunku, so it was not only necessity. So I think he held his own, I guess. A difficult match to get your debut in, and he held his own. So nothing more you can expect.
Great. Yeah, definitely keep an eye on him. Obviously, kind of the last youngster that left CK was pretty decent, so we'll definitely keep eyes on him. Scott, Club Brugge. We spoke last week about how it wasn't massively a test against St. Truden. Obviously, Standard not the best team at the moment, but you always know that if you're going away to Standard, they're going to put a fight up. We saw that against Anderlecht. They put a fight up. They put a fight up here. What did you see from Club Brugge in this one? Kind of obviously thinking with like the new manager and stuff. Were you impressed, or did you see any areas of concern?
Yeah, I thought they played pretty well on the whole. Actually, they'll be frustrated. Obviously, they couldn't get it over the line. It's interesting because they started this game very well. I thought they were getting in behind Standard a lot, and I was the opening 10 minutes. I was really quite worried for Standard. I thought this could be ugly if the game stays like this. They played very well. We're starting to see real signs now, I think, of the way that Alfred Schroeder wants to play. There's more energy, there's more passing and movement, and he clearly loves a rondo in training. Who doesn't? For those technical skills, you can really see that he spent a lot of time working with them at Barcelona, and I'm sure at Ajax as well, on a kind of technical level, and that's obviously started to kind of filter down to his work in the training ground with Bruges now. So there are a lot of positive signs about the way in which he wants them to play that are starting to show on the pitch. Having said that, look at Elsner this week before the game made some really interesting comments where he was alluding to the fact that he knew Bruges were going to have probably a lot more of the ball than Standard were, and it was going to be really, really important what Standard did with the ball in this game was going to have predetermined basically the outcome of it. And the first goal's a brilliant example of that. Brilliant counter-attacking goal, 3 passes, goal when, completely against the run of the play at that point. And I think that's kind of how Standard are going to be playing for a while now, just being ruthless actually and efficient about how they use the ball. And he was really pleased with that goal. He mentioned it again afterwards as being a really good example of what he was talking about there. You might be under a lot of pressure, you might not be looking great, you might be looking ropey, you might be getting cut into shreds a wee bit at the back like they were. Bruges were finding channels far too easily in that game, but you get your opportunities, you pick the right pass, and they were great in this game. Actually, I said in my own social media afterwards that I thought Standard were really, really resilient here. It's what Ben's been saying for a couple of weeks now. They're hanging in games and managing to take opportunities that you wouldn't expect them to get or take, and they're actually becoming quite good at that. It's not something they want to become a kind of staple of the play, I don't think, because it's a bit dicey that. But certainly over the last month or so, they've become very good at that, particularly against the bigger sides in the league. Bruges, obviously, overwhelming feeling of frustration, particularly in light of what happened in Brussels in the game that followed the conclusion of this one.
Amazingly nice segue there, Scott. Couldn't have done anything better myself. That was fantastic. Yeah, let's move on to that game. So yeah, Union against Genk almost made our good friend Will Downing late for his flight home. This game dragged on for that much time. Kasper Nielsen opened the scoring in the 27th minute. Really nice finish from him. I think I was saying, and we all agree, he's kind of one of the unsung heroes of that team. If you're just kind of looking at Van Ziert and Dav scoring all the goals, that Kasper Nielsen does make them tick in that midfield. First half, I thought Genk were pretty abject. They didn't really have anything between the midfield and the attack. There was just this massive gap between Ugbo and anyone else. I'm not sure who was meant to be filling that. I think it might have been Aiting, might have been meant to be in that kind of position, but it didn't really look like that was a comfortable position for him to be in. Half time, they make some changes, being on Mike Tressel, which I think was definitely a much better kind of player to fit in behind someone like Ugbo. Also being on Big Paul on Owachu, good to see him back on the pitch. And it was him that gets the equalising goal from the penalty spot. Never really in doubt with Big Paul most of the time. And from then, Genk, the second half was definitely much better, and they created a lot more chances. Couldn't quite get the final ball. They couldn't quite get the shots on target that they wanted. However, they were pushing, and in the kind of added time, Union on the counter-attack think they've got the winner. However, there was an offside in the build-up to that, so that kind of had to be VAR'd for a reasonably long time. But I don't know how, but it's one of those things, isn't it, when there's a stoppage in extra time, it's kind of like almost no man's land for who's actually keeping count of how much time's actually passed. Because it's just, it seems to just be chaos and that no one's really keeping an eye on it. Apart from us at home. Exactly. But like refereeing and officials, you always find it, don't you? There's like stoppages and sometimes they add literally nothing on. Or in this case, they add more time on. And even more time led to Union having another chance. They get a penalty, which thankfully you sent us these still images, which now I've seen it. I'm like, well, is it not like you could kind of, it's debatable, I guess, but there's also kind of the first contact appears to be outside of the box. Regardless of that, Union should have actually finished the chance that they had created. In the first place, it was kind of being cleared off the line and kind of bodies everywhere. They get the penalty in the 100th minute, I guess it is. Dante Van Zier steps up, puts it away, and it just felt, when you're just like, yeah, everything's kind of going your way at this point. Like, you're getting the rub of the green, you're getting that luck on your side. Scott, I'll start with your opinions first, because I know yours has got plenty to say on this one. What were your kind of opinions on this? What do you think about the end to the game sort of event, I guess?
Well, I think, it doesn't really get much more dramatic than that, does it? I mean, wow. Still, even now, in thinking about it, I mean, I think the last game that had kind of quite so dramatic a conclusion that I can remember anyway, that I would highlight probably is that great Champions League semi-final, Ajax and Tottenham a few years ago, which just had an extraordinary conclusion to it. I mean, this game, it's Union doing Union things. We've said it so often about them this season that they just keep going. They have one setting, and I just kind of knew that even with time running out in this game, I kind of felt that, they thought, what, we're still going to go for the win here, because they knew that Bruges had already dropped the points. They knew that the prize to extend their lead was very much there, and a lot of sides would have sat in it in those last few minutes and went, okay, we'll take the point, and we'll take the status quo. But no, they really wanted the win, I think. And the penalty obviously is very controversial. The goal being chopped off, the Undav one, I thought looked good at first until I saw it, and I thought, okay, kind of fair enough. But yet, still, that in itself didn't deter them. They kept going. They got the penalty. I think obviously the thing with the penalty is, where's the key contact? There is that argument about the initial contacts outside the box, but where is the key contact? And I think they've gone with that decision. The thing that was telling for me was the referee whistled straight away. There wasn't any let's check this or anything like that. Obviously it was checked, but he felt as soon as he saw it that it was an infringement. My initial reaction in real time was that it was a penalty, actually, and I still think it was slightly more of a penalty than Genk's one, but both of them are ultimately, I think, kind of highly debatable. But yeah, there is something about Union. I don't subscribe to the luck thing, them getting all the luck at the moment, really, because I think they're creating their own opportunities just through their sheer positivity, to be honest. And sometimes that's where the rewards come from, as kind of frustrating as it can be. But that felt like a hugely significant moment, that really huge. And the reactions on the touchline said a lot to me. I think they felt that as well. It wasn't just the joy of kind of winning unexpectedly. It was, I think they felt this was a really big moment, especially in light of the fixture that's coming up on Thursday evening of this week as well. People already saying that if Union, are able to win on Thursday, and they've been better away from home than they have at home, so you wouldn't bet against that happening, then they will be in an unbelievably strong position, even if the points are still to get halved. So hugely dramatic, that, and can't beat that for entertainment.
A very sour one to take from my perspective, obviously, for a multitude of reasons. So first half, Genk were trying to hold Union off, and actually that part of the plan did work. The outside of the goal, which was a long distance shot, Union didn't create anything either. Well, one big chance, which was offside anyway as well. So the defending part was quite good, but indeed the creating side was definitely not so great. After 35 minutes or so, I think also at least the experiment with Munoz being an inverted wingback was a bit released, with Genk also getting slightly, not much there, but slightly more dangerous by the end of the first half, with the nice XG of 0.03 as a result. And then the second half, well, I agree that the game was at least more even, and I guess even the second half, Genk can even claim that they were the better team. Unfortunately, Tresor's long distance strike then hits the post instead of going in like Nielsen's one. Penalties, a few elements there that why it should never be a penalty for me. Well, there was 20 seconds to play when Union's goal got chopped off. The ball went around a few times, and then, I think 1.5 minutes later, that phase followed. I know stoppage time is always a minimum of added time, but since there was only 20 seconds to play, and in the stoppage time before there was nothing significant happen, I don't see why it should take more than 20 seconds there then. And then there's, of course, is it a foul or not is a question. Also debatable. I'll leave that up to you. Where does the foul take place, the initial foul? And then the thing, well, like Scott said, he didn't whistle immediately. He waited, he gave the advantage, and when Genk saved the ball off the line, then he gave the penalty. And I'm not sure if that is actually still a thing in football. Give the advantage and then come back to it. This one I'm not completely sure about, but he did not give it straight away. That I can tell you, though. He only whistled it after Van der Voort got the ball, after two Genk players headed it off already from the off the line, and after that he gave the penalty. There are so many elements to this, and ultimately I'm also sour because it's 1 point that Genk really could use. Just a sour one to take, but Union definitely still in their flow. They definitely did well. They could win this game. They could win it. They could draw it. Whatever result was the more fair one. Ultimately, it does not matter. And yeah, they do seem to take a lot of these ones. It's not just luck, of course. It's definitely their drive, like Scott mentioned, in these games. And everything seems to be falling. But you also that's something that you really fight for as well, and that you deserve. You make your own luck, is what they say, I guess. Yeah, and I think that's definitely what is happening. And it will be interesting to see the last 20 minutes of Union, though. Outside of these few counterattacks, they were maybe potentially worrying, because they were definitely dropping deep there, and not because they wanted to still, of course, but the teams could play through them, I guess. And Genk is definitely also one of the teams that can do that best if they are in form. But definitely the three teams coming up next for Union will also try to do so, and Genk might have shown that it is possible. We'll see how they hold up. And of course, even after that, they are in a very good position anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed. Pretty much everything there, Joris, especially the bits on Union. I initially thought they'd given the penalty because of a handball on the line. That's the only thing I could work out. But obviously, yeah, with all the replays and stuff. But like we said, everyone can make their own mind up. And let's move on to Mecklen against Anderlecht. Almost kind of like with Gent Charleroi, not too much to go into here. Finished 1-0 to Anderlecht. Joshua Zirkzee getting another goal for the season in the 23rd minute. Mecklen only managed 3 shots, none of which were on target, despite 54% possession. Quite surprised to see Nicholas Storm not starting. He'd obviously come off the bench. Obviously a big miss for them when he isn't starting there. But yeah, Scott, I guess as the Mecklen sympathiser, we'll just quickly touch on this one from you. What do you think went wrong for them in this game in terms of, like, seeing a Mecklen side not get any shots on target is quite rare. Like, we think of them as a kind of almost gung-ho attacking team that are very entertaining to watch. But was it Anderlecht or was it Mecklen that kind of had the impact on this one?
I think it's it's a wee bit more nuanced than that. I think it's a bit of both. I think Mecklen were a little bit flat, didn't do a lot of the basic things that they do exceptionally well. A little bit disruption as well. Obviously they've lost some players. Dries Wouters getting his debut. I think Anderlecht are just quite good at the moment as well, which kind of doesn't help. And Anderlecht are just not a side that Mecklen are enjoying seeing much this season. That was the 8th goal that they've scored against them this season as well. I think that makes the aggregate score 8-3, something like that. So they'll be glad to see the back of them for the rest of the season, that's for sure. Anderlecht, of course, one of the real informed sides in the league. Their last 10, I think they've won 6 and drawn 4. Would have won 7, of course, but for dropping points against Standard last week. The Anderlecht machine, and it is a machine that's purring along nicely now, is still kind of in the zone that Big Vinny would want it to be in. If they can maintain anything like this, then they're certainly going to secure their playoff 1 place, I think, and be in with a shout of challenging Union really, really hard, I think, which is obviously what they're after. They're keeping that very quiet. Mecklen just, I think, need to kind of regroup a little bit as well. There's been a lot of disruption, some of it being off the park. A lot of the theatrics around their protests just kind of last week. I think ultimately, while they might not have had a direct bearing on this game, I do think these things can and do affect sides' momentum and preparation as well. So it's another reason why that was just a kind of a bit distasteful, as we were talking about last week. So yeah, Mecklen will be disappointed with their performance, but we'll be glad that they managed to keep Anderlecht down to the 1 goal. And Anderlecht should have had a penalty as well. There was a definite penalty. Wouters clipping a calf, which I thought was a kind of stonewall on Rahman as well. He was as surprised as I was that he didn't get it, but the result went the right way on the basis of the form in the end.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair enough. Joris, do you have anything to add on this one?
Well, I haven't seen much of this game, to be fair, but from what I've seen on the images, like, Mecklen really did not have many chances. I think there was one Schwitz shot, which was their first danger in the second half, much like Genk was actually in the, I guess, but like complete Anderlecht dominance throughout the game, I guess. And yeah, I wonder that it stayed at 1-0.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, they'll be happy to have put that kind of frustration of the draw with Standard behind them. Speaking of informed teams, Cercle Brugge guys, they are the informed team still. They made it another win. So I think there's only 1 defeat in 9. And all the other results have been wins. If you take out the cup game against Mecklen, obviously, since end of November, only lost 1 game, which is just mental. Quite an easy kind of start to this one. In the 6th minute, they get a penalty. Dino Hotic steps up. It is one of those penalties where like you go to kick the ball, but someone beats you to it, and you just boot them in the bottom of the foot. I always find them quite harsh, but obviously they are penalties. But it's just like, it's one of those ones like you literally aren't going to tackle them. You're like, I just want to clear the ball, and they just nip in front of you and nick it. Hotic stepped up, puts it away, 1-0. Zolta, to be fair to them, lots of possession. They were really trying in this game. They really were trying to push. We saw the kind of return of Gano and Vossen. Vossen playing a little bit deeper from Gano, Dompe and Federa kind of either side. Your strong holding midfielders in second, Boya. So it's kind of like relying on Vossen, Gano, Dompe, Federa to do kind of the creativity in that side. I see Rabi Matondo back on the pitch as well. That was good to see. Didn't have as much of an impact as he probably would have liked, despite trying. It's kind of all about Dino Hotic. He gets an assist for the second one from a corner. Boris Popovic pops up from the back, makes it 2-0 from a corner. Into the second half, Zultavar again pushing again, and they do finally get a goal back through Jelle Vossen. Nice finish from him. However, 5 minutes later, Kevin Denke is on the pitch, and he gets, I believe, his first goal of the season. Obviously, he went down with malaria earlier on in the year, so yeah, he's not been fit and has some few issues, but you could see the look on his face. He looked absolutely delighted to get that one. So it finished 3-1 to Cercle Bruges. I don't think Zorta were that bad in this game. They came up against just a Cercle Bruges side who are very comfortable in what they're doing at the moment. They know exactly their game plan. They know how they're going to play. They know where the pressuring and doing that press. And yeah, I think Carlos kind of spoke about it. Scott and yours, you guys have both spoken about kind of how the data backs up the way they should be playing, and that's how they're playing now. They brought players in to play that system. They're now playing the system they brought the players into play. So they've also just added Guido Voggi as well on loan from Bochum. So they've strengthened the striking department. Obviously, Anderlecht fans will hear Guido Voggi and strengthening the striking department and be a bit like, I don't think that's what you mean. But maybe within this system, he'll be a lot better than the kind of the pressure he had on him at Anderlecht. We'll find out. Either of you want to jump in on this one? I guess it's concerning for Zorta, but like, it's one of those games that have looked at to start the season and been like, okay, that's a game to target. But given the circumstances at the moment, playing Cercle Bruges is like playing one of the top sides in Belgium because of the way they're playing, isn't it? So again, it's hard to read much into this, and there's bigger games for them to come.
I will quickly jump in. It's of course Ganvula and not Gila Vogi. He's still
yeah.
a Wolfsburg stalwart, so I'm sure they would. That would be a surprise transfer, definitely. And I don't think Anderlecht fans would laugh with that one. But yeah, so Ganvula, Silver Ganvula, has made the transfer there. He was not a success at Anderlecht, is the least you can say. But yeah, it's of course different in a big club with all the pressure, and in a Cercle Brugge side now, which, well, indeed are at the level of a big club at the moment in gathering points. Although, like last week, I think they did not play their best of games. They could have lost this one. Zulte Waregem indeed created quite a lot of chances, and in the end, an only score via Didion Howler, I guess, which was nicely tapped in by Vosse. But that I guess that was also a summary of the game. They needed that to score. So usually they don't have much struggle with scoring. This time they did. Of course, they were already behind after 5 or 6 minutes, so that doesn't help them. Not much to say about it for both teams. Cercle, that's it. I guess it's again one of these stories of like, when the flow is good, things go your way, and they did. Again, in Zulte Waregem, well, it was an encouraging performance for them, I guess, but of course, they would have liked to take something out of it as well.
I think there's a lot of really interesting work going on at Cercle at the moment. I think Dominic Talhammer's hammer is clearly much stronger than anything Thor's got to offer, that's for sure. I find it interesting as well that today Carlos Avina, who's joined us as a guest here at the BFP, was talking about how they're not content to sit on the good work that's happened. I think in their last 7 they've won 6 and lost 1 since Dominic Talhammer came in, and he was talking about, they want more. They want to push what's working more and to see where that takes them. And they are, outside of Union and Anderlecht, the form side in the league, as Ben was saying. I mean, admittedly, Antwerp's form is very good generally at the moment. I think that, there's some really interesting things going on at Cercle at the moment. And, a new striker coming in, I think, is interesting. They've been working away quietly, I think, in the background. And, their transfer activity's been, very quiet up until today. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to add to that before the window closes as well, because Carlos alluded, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now, that they were expecting to announce a couple of names before the end of the window, certainly, and that's one of them being confirmed now. But they're playing very well, and an entirely different side. Matondo, so important to what they do. Hotic clearly enjoying his football in that system as well, and they look definitely to be a fitter and more energetic side, and that's clearly the case because they've been doing a lot of fitness work and making sure that physically they're in a much stronger side to be able to compete as well, and that's such an important aspect of the game in Belgium, as we all know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, that kind of sums up our kind of roundup. I'll quickly do like a quick Afcon roundup, and then we're going to go back to Scott for some 1B and then look ahead to the fixtures coming up. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, Steven Fortes, Kenny Rocha Santos, they're both on their way back now. They just got knocked out by Senegal, one of the pre-tournament favourites. Like I said, Steven Fortes had some good performances. Kenny Rocha as well, I thought he was quite good in the central midfield, but Oostende will be quite happy to get them back. Selemani obviously is part of that incredible Comoros team who everyone kind of took their hat off to. Fantastic performances from them. do kind of want to give kind of like a condolences send out from everyone at the Belgian Football Podcast to those that lost their lives during the kind of stampede that took place during or after that game in Cameroon. No one should ever go to a football match and not come home. I think everyone can kind of agree on that. It's just such sad situations. So hopefully some more positive news can come out of what happened there and it isn't as bad as first thought and first feared. But yeah, all of our condolences definitely going to everyone over in Cameroon who's been a victim of that. Hopefully the tournament can kind of rally around and put on another great show and performance for kind of the people that did lose their lives there. In terms of other Belgian kind of participants, I guess we mentioned earlier, Abdi Jallo's still there with Gambia and he scored some fantastic goals. His first Afcon goal for Gambia, like I said last week, and then he got a really, really fantastic winner against Tunisia. So he went off and looked a little bit injured in the game the other day against Guinea. Hopefully he's going to be okay because they've got a game against Cameroon coming up, which will be absolutely massive. But again, they're going into that with absolutely nothing to lose as they have been playing this whole tournament. So hopefully he can spark them on against some fellow Pro League players in Collins Fire and Gadu Ngeji. Herve Koffi, as Scott said earlier, with Burkina Faso, he's gone through, made a great save in a penalty shootout. Penalty shootout went on for a very long time. And for somehow, at the end of all that, he still had time to do about 15 million backflips and go viral for that. So props to the cat. We'll hope that he can put in another good performance. And who knows, they're very close to the final now. They've got a reasonably good draw. Yes, so Burkina Faso will be playing Tunisia instead of everyone thought would be Nigeria. He'll come up against Hamza Rafia of Standard Liège. Big chance for him to get into the semi-finals. And who knows, from there you can make the final quite easily with Afcon. Elsewhere tonight we have Morocco against Malawi. Presume that Morocco are going to win this one. Obviously Tisadali, Amala and Shaklo in that one. Shaklo and Tisadali on the bench, I believe. Amala, he's been a constant figure for Morocco throughout this tournament, so he starts. Expect them to still be there, and I'm sure Ghent would love to get Tisadali back, but I can't imagine that Morocco are going to lose to Malawi. And yeah, Cote d'Ivoire, Christian Kwame obviously playing second fizzle to Sebastian Haller. They've got a big game against Egypt. That should be quite an exciting one coming up. So who potentially could be back depending on what sort of Egypt turns up. But part of me thinks I think Ivory Coast are going to win that one and Christian Kwame is going to still be out there. So yeah, lots of interest from us in terms of Belgian players at AFCON, but we are going to get some of them coming back at the moment. Sorry, Cabot obviously will be back. Starting to get some players back, but definitely some more players to watch if you are keeping up with AFCON. Speaking of keeping up with different things, let's switch to Scott now, who's going to give us a quick roundup of what's been happening in the Pro League second tier, which came back this weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. After last week's 1B roundup, which was actually quite dramatic, despite the fact that there hadn't been any games, obviously, because of the break, a lot going on off the pitch in 1B over the last week or so. This week has been very quiet, even though the action's back. Molenbeek managed to win 2-0 at home to Lommel. Westerlo and Denza has been postponed, the COVID postponement. Virton lost convincingly at home, 4-0 to Beveren, and Mouscron and Liers finished goalless. So in terms of the way things stand in 1B, Westerlo are still top, 7 points clear of Beveren, but they do have 2 games in hand, so they could very easily extend that lead. Virton remain bottom, and Lommel at the moment have no wins in 10 now, so are going through a really sticky patch and really need 2 or 3 results to kind of go their way at the moment. They're the side that really are badly not in form and need a little bit of stability, I think. That's the main takeaways from 1B at the moment.
The other game between Molenbeek and Westerlo that's kicking off tonight, so that's going to be an interesting one to see kind of if Molenbeek win that. I think they do, don't they? They go above Vaz and Beveren, so some pressure on there, and that could be a nice little, the battle for second place I think is going to be the one, isn't it? That's going to be where we see more, because at Westerlo at the moment, yeah, we're thinking they are kind of steaming ahead and kind of doing a Union in that sense of being quite clear of the chaos that is beneath them. But 1B being back, you just know it's going to bring the drama and the chaos, and we absolutely love that. Let's quickly look ahead to upcoming match week. Obviously we've got this midweek game, we aren't going to be able to do a review of that before we get into the weekend, so if things come out of it, we can talk about it next week. At the moment, Antwerp are winning 1-0 against St. Sluden. We've got Ghent Oostende tonight, Charleroi Kortrijk tonight. Obviously, we're recording on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have Zortewaargem against Leuven. Should be quite a big game there. Eupen against Standard. And then the big one, Solang Beerschot and Anderlecht Club Brugge, which should be a battle of 2 kind of unbeaten, informed teams. And then Thursday night, the big one again. There's so many big games this week. Club Brugge against Union, which will lead nicely into the weekend, in which we have, starting on Friday, St Truiden and Charleroi. Beerschot holds on to Varegem, so they're playing those two teams just above them quite close in succession. Solang against Eupen, Cercle Brugge host Oostende. On Sunday, Union against Anderlecht. The big games for Union just keep coming. Ghent against Antwerp, Standard against Mecklen, and then we finish with Kortrijk against Club Brugge. Guys, out of the ones coming up on the weekend, we'll ignore the midweek for now because we've spoken about how big they are. Which of those are you looking forward to the most?
King's game. Oh no, wait. Yeah, if you haven't heard them in there, that is correct. They have a break of 2 weeks because of the many internationals from the Americas. Like Club Brugge will also miss Buchanan for a few games as well, and there's definitely a few other teams also affected.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's another big one at the Olympisch on Saturday as well. Beerschot are at home to Zalta, and that could be a huge game as well, depending on the outcome of tomorrow night, Wednesday night's game, where Beerschot obviously go to Serang as well. So it's a massive week for both Serang and Beerschot.
And I will go for Ghent against Antwerp. This could probably be the last chance for Ghent as well, also depending on their result in the upcoming game in the midweek. But this could be their last straw for a playoff one.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, it should be a good week. And I think lots of things are going to start moving and shaking in the Pro League this week. Guys, as always, thank you once again for joining me on this episode.
It's an absolute pleasure. See you next week, everyone. I am now off to continue practicing my backflips.
I'm not, but good luck with that. And we want to see the result, definitely. And hear you next week.
If you can get that done by next week, Scott, that'd be fantastic. Anyway, thank you once again to everyone for listening to this episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please do leave us a review. You can do so on Spotify now. You can definitely do so on Apple and other podcast applications. So yeah, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with us, you can. You can tweet us. It's at Belgian Podcast. You can also find us individually. I'm at BenJat94. Scott's at Scott_coin. Yours is at Yoris_Beck. Alternatively, you can also send us an email. It's belgianfootpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks once again for listening, everyone, and we'll see you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.